If you've started using more AI tools like ChatGPT to help you with your everyday work, but you want to get better at prompting, this is a great video for you because I'm going to tell you 21 tips that are going to supercharge your ability to use AI and get the best out of it. First up, specify the tone. Maybe you want your output to be professional or personable or maybe funny. Whatever you want, make sure you tell it. Tell it what you want it to do. You might be writing to a coworker or a friend. Well, make sure you create a tone that matches your moment. Set an objective. Tell the ChatGPT prompt what your goal is in the first place. Maybe you're trying to persuade someone or entertain them or inform them. I'm starting to sound a little bit like the BBC there, but you get the idea. If you give it the objective, then it can set the content and create that content around that objective in the first place, which is going to be much more effective for your needs. Ask it to act like someone. Sometimes even stronger than just giving it a general tone of voice is to give the ChatGPT a character. Maybe you tell it to be like a teacher or a marketeer or a complete beginner at a topic. That way it can represent that character, it can behave like it, and therefore the type of content it shares is appropriate for the voice that you want it to give. Define the scope. You need to be really specific on what the volume of output you're looking for is. You don't want to just keep that open and then get a 2,000 word answer when really you wanted a sentence or a paragraph. You need to be really clear about the length of text or communication that you want. Provide context. This is so important because if you try and set a prompt and you just give it an action to do without any context, it's rubbish in, rubbish out. It's got nothing that's going to make it personalized and creative. It's like if you were onboarding a new team member or an intern, you need to tell them about the organization. You need to tell them about your situation, and then it can create something that's bespoke for you. Tell it the format. Maybe you want the output to be bullet points or an essay or a script. Whatever you want that format to be, you need to tell it, inform it of that format choice, because otherwise it's like if you go to a restaurant and you say, I want food, but really you need something specific. Tell it, it's sushi or whatever food you like. I don't care, but the format is really important. Use keywords. Perhaps your organisation or you as yourself are known for using particular terms or a particular phrase, and actually you want to make sure that's included inside the response. Well, give it to them. Make sure that you provide that information. That way the output's going to sound like you or your organisation, and therefore it's going to be a lot more tailored to that need. Set boundaries. No, I'm not talking about your relationship. I mean, you should do that too. But when you're giving your prompts, make sure that you tell it of anything that you don't want to include. Maybe you don't want it to include jargon, or you really do want it to be specific in terms of the format that it needs to take. Then you need to set that boundary from the off, and that way it knows the constraints of what it's working in. Provide examples. Look, AIs will learn in a similar way to us as humans. If you gave me a task to do, I'd probably ask you for an example. What does good look like for you? Is there an example of where you've seen a similar output that you're expecting this time? Well, be helpful here. Give it the same information. That way it can structure its answer in a way that you're expecting, and it knows that it's going to match your expectations. Help it understand deadlines. Say you're creating a prompt that will give you a guidance on how to do something. We need to be really specific in the time frames of the answer that you're looking for. If it's for something tomorrow, that's going to make a difference to something in 6 months from now. And if you want to get some guidance on how best to prepare for that activity, it's going to give you different types of information back, more relevant to the time frames that you're talking about. Help it know your audience. You need to know your audience, and so too does the AI. So tell it, are you speaking to children? Are you speaking to people from a Gen Z generation? Maybe you're speaking to a chief executive. Well, that way the tone, the vocabulary, the type of content is going to be very different. So help it understand that so it can tailor its messaging. Specify the language. This might sound quite silly in some ways. Obviously, if you want it to translate to a different language, you need to tell it whether you want it to be in English or Spanish, French, Portuguese, whatever. But even if it's within your own language, you might need to tell it whether to speak plain English or legal English. Don't assume it necessarily knows what you're looking for. Be specific. Citations. Ask it for its sources. This is really important if you're doing a piece of research or writing a report, for instance. You can ask for the information in a format that links to where it got the content in the first place. This is really important because, one, it allows you to fact check that the information is accurate and it's presenting it in the right way. But two, when you share that information with others, they can learn more, they can dig deeper and find out more about the topic. So it's a really important thing, and I would encourage you to do that on most of your prompts. Points of view. You can ask the AI for multiple perspectives. You could say, for instance, tell me the pros and cons of this, or provide 3 different perspectives here. You can almost make it so it debates itself, and that means you can get a rounded viewpoint of what an answer might be. Counterarguments. You can also build on that by asking the AI to challenge your points of view too. Say you provide a bit of information, well, you can say, tell me, what would you argue against this? And that way you can challenge your own thinking, maybe see things from a different angle. Or even if you're going into a particular meeting, you can prepare well for the kinds of questions or challenges that you might face. Terminology. You can tell AI the right lingo to use. Maybe you're in a particular organization or an industry where certain phrases or terminologies are used, then you can tell the AI to do that. Or maybe what to avoid, what sounds a little bit weird. This is a great way to sound much more authentic in the answers. Ask for analogies. You can use AI to make really complicated ideas quite straightforward by asking it for analogies. So for instance, tell me what blockchain is like I'm a 5-year-old. Well then boom, it gives you a really simple explanation of what that technology does and how it works in a way that's really easy to understand. And that can be really helpful for loads of different forms of communication. Quotes. You can ask the AI to include expert quotes from famous people, which I can tell you what, makes you sound really smart, but also it can bring to life the concepts you're talking about. Maybe it's a quote from a thought leader or an industry expert, or maybe just someone famous from pop culture. It contextualizes the topic in a really nice way. Statistics. Use stats to back up your argument. This is great because it gives you some authority and shows that you've done your research. Plus, stats are really snappy. They stay in people's mind. So it's a great way to back up your argument and show that it's got some real credibility behind it. But as I said before, citations are really important, especially around stats. You want to make sure it's accurate because there's nothing worse than giving numbers that are just fundamentally incorrect. Call to action. This is so important for any communications. You need to be trying to drive a particular behavior or action. Maybe you want someone to donate to a particular cause, or if it's a presentation, come talk to me after I've given this talk. Otherwise, why are you giving this communications in the first place if you're not trying to change someone's behavior? Finally, tip 21, questions. This was one of the first tips that someone gave me about prompting that I thought was brilliant. It is that once you've sent a prompt, tell it, before you give me an answer, ask me any questions. This way, the prompt can identify where might be there some gaps in information that's going to allow it to give a more robust answer. This sometimes takes a bit longer, if I'm honest, because you will spend a lot of time trying to work through the questions and find the information that you think is relevant there. But as a result, you get a much better response. So it's definitely one that's worth trying. Whew. 21 tips. That took some time, but I think that will be really useful to you if you are using AI in your day-to-day work and want to get better at prompting. If you use some of those tips, you don't have to use all of them every single time, but even some of them, it will make a big difference. I think I've covered pretty much everything there, but if you've used some other tips that you found really helpful, I'd love it if you could leave some comments below to tell me what you found most effective. Because like everyone else, I'm learning what to do best with these AI tools, and I'd love to learn from your own advice. In the meantime, if you found this video helpful, then I would love it if you could like the video and perhaps subscribe to the channel. I'm on a journey to work out how I can make the use of some of the best AI tools and tips to get better in my day-to-day work. I work as a product owner normally, and so I'm trying to see how I can use AI in my everyday world. And I'm sure if you're on a similar journey, then my content will be helpful to you. 21 tips was a lot. In fact, if you've been looking closely, you'll have noticed it's got dark while I've been filming this. So I'll leave you to it to try out some of those different tips. And until next time, best of luck on your AI journey.